Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and I'm so delighted today to be joined by the wonderful Gabrielle Ryan to talk all about Power Book Force, the latest installment in the Power series. And you went through quite an extensive, elongated casting process with this, starting with self-tapes, then going to in-person with a little gap of silence in the middle that sounded very stressful as well. But I was interested because every step of the casting process and every time you get a callback or you get any sort of note or new detail, that's already kind of an opportunity to start figuring out who the character is, and starting to like piece together new information. And so when you have a casting process like that, where you're continuing to kind of come back into the room, so to speak, whether it's virtually or in person, how are you starting to like look for that information and read those details, particularly within the process of Power?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you for having me. Yeah, as you said, it was definitely an extensive process. It was in the height of the pandemic as well, so it was all virtual, even down to the chemistry we read with Joseph. But essentially, yeah, when I read the character initially, I instantly loved her, and I wasn't sure if they would think I was right for the role. So I just thought I'll do the best job for this audition, and hopefully they'll bring me back for another character. Because initially she had a military storyline, and that actually subsequently got taken out. But that was the issue that I thought, oh, maybe they won't believe me as that. But I worked so hard and I worked out like crazy, so especially on my arms, knowing that they would only see my top half because it was on Zoom. And I researched, I went into extensive research, and I was very familiar with the Power franchise from before. I was a huge fan. So I already felt like I knew the world. But when it came to Gloria, there are elements of her that I just understood the character immediately, that I was so excited to delve in and sort of, she's suffered a lot of loss in her life and like trauma. And I think that's something that everybody can relate to in some capacity, whether it's, a death or a lover or, anything. There's always something that you can identify with that. And with any character that I work on, I always sort of look at the similarities and differences and then kind of go from there. I actually literally write them down and then I go from there. Yeah, that's actually the fun bit. That's the fun bit, is like working out the character. And I have a great coach, Toby Sanderman, who worked through it with me, and we had a lot of fun with the audition process. There definitely was a lull. It was a 7-week silent period where we didn't hear anything. I think my agent literally wanted to drop me in that point because I was calling every 5 seconds, like, "Hey, we heard that from Power. So what's happening with Power?" He was like, "Gabrielle, when I hear, I'll let you know."
But it's so great, like you said, to get cast on a show where you're already such a huge fan of the franchise and of the series. And from that regard, how did that lead to certain choices that you made within your character? Because obviously you didn't kind of know fully how they were going to build certain details of the world, but in looking at how they've built out each series individually, it gives you a real sense of the world building, the types of characters, the way that they tend to approach story. And so are there certain choices that you made with Gloria off the back of that knowledge that you came in with?
I wouldn't say that sort of the Power world came into sort of my choices with Gloria. I just knew instantly, looking at the page and reading the material, how strong and determined and fearless she was. Because, the majority of the scenes, for my audition scenes, were with Tommy and Shane Harper, who plays Victor Flynn. And, they're both very powerful, sometimes dangerous men. And she's completely unfazed by that. So there takes a certain type of woman to be mixed up in that, and, to still live her day-to-day life as she does. And you see pretty early on in episode 1, she can absolutely handle herself when the situation with Simon breaks out, and she handles herself. Tommy comes to the rescue as well, but she definitely is a feisty one. So yeah, that was more where my focus was, as opposed to sort of taking anything from the original Power and bringing it in. But sort of knowing the world, that there are a lot of strong females in the world, already, and with the other spin-off. So I knew that she was going to be a strong woman.
Yeah. And you were talking before about some of the notations that you make and the lists that you make in terms of character development. And I've also heard you speak about music being a really integral part to character development as well. And particularly for a show like this, where, you know, the music is such a part of the fabric of what this show is and how they tell the stories. You know, was it kind of the same process in how you worked with music, or was there even more of kind of an evolution in how you were able to use music to find character?
Yeah, no, with this for sure, because, you know, Gloria is, it described, we call her Jamaican, which is Jamaican American. So she's got Jamaican roots, brought up in the US. And so for me, you know, I have West Indian roots myself, Jamaican and St. Lucian. And so I've definitely used music, because there's just something about music and smell and, you know, all these different senses that take you into a certain place. And so for me, I definitely had a playlist. I would actually put on Pandora and just put in, I always say it's a track by Coffee called Toast. And when I put that in, just a whole, you know, variation of other tracks come on afterwards. And it just gets me in that like mindset of, you know, she gets back to her roots. And then, and she's a cook as well. So, you know, she's a great chef. And I always feel like any great chef that I know, they always have music blaring. So it's like, you know, it gets you into that mode of, you know, being in the kitchen, cooking up a storm and bringing it out to feed to all the fellas.
Yeah, you know, and with the cooking that she does and the fact that she's a chef, she's got this bar that she's running, and it's not quite her full vision of what she would create from the ground up for herself, but it really feels like she's made the aspects of it hers that she can, like, you know, I can create the menu and I can dictate this. And,
Exactly.
you know, it's like, it's not necessarily a bar that you would expect to walk in and find a really fantastic, you know, menu in. It's more kind of just come in for a drink and some chips style bar.
I love it. I mean, there's no chips in Gloria's bar. There's definitely rice and peas though.
But I like what that says about her, and the fact that it feels like someone who's kind of like always setting their parameters and always looking for opportunities for themselves to do something for herself as well. You know, was that kind of a similar track in what you saw in the scripts when you started to see those details about her and how you started threading her together?
Oh yeah, 1000%. I mean, the thing is, you know, she obviously has the aspirations to have her own restaurant. That's literally what she tells Tommy in episode 2, that she wanted to open a fancy Jamaican spot, ended up in this situation. Obviously didn't expect to then fall in love with the son of the person she's in debt to, which now creates this even messier situation because she's in debt to the dad that doesn't want her to be with his son. And then that's a whole, you know, world of its own. But she's such a hustler and fighter that Gloria will make the best of any situation she's in, whatever situation she's put in. And I'm quite like that as a person. I can adapt to any environment. You know, I came to America knowing nobody, and, you know, I've come this far. So I did okay, I think. But yeah, she definitely her aspirations were not to be in, you know, Dr. Parker's under the thumb of Walter Flynn. She definitely wants to open her, you know, fancy dream restaurant for sure.
And talking a little bit about that first scene when Tommy first walks into the bar, you know, I like that immediately, you know, the two of them are both people who don't feel a need to rush to fill the silence and to kind of give other people information about themselves. And they've got that real similar dynamic in, you know, being very astute, very observational about people around them, kind of reading the details rather than giving too much of themselves. And so when you were playing that scene with Joseph Sikora, how did the two of you want to play those aspects and the fact that they're essentially kind of both playing the same game with one another?
Yeah, I mean, that scene was so enjoyable. And that's probably the scene that we've had the most feedback about, because there are a lot of silent moments and it is a lot in the eyes and looking at each other. And it definitely is that not filling the space, you know, too quickly, because we are sussing each other out. And it is definitely, but you see, obviously there's an instant attraction. And it's not necessarily that we're playing that. It's not like we plan to play it like that. But it's just that these characters are attracted to each other. And I think that, you know, definitely on the Gloria side, I think she's just so intrigued by this person that's just come into the bar. He's a new guy in town. You know, I can spot a Brit a mile off when I'm in New York or LA. There's just something about it. And so I think she sort of sees, oh, he's definitely not from here. This guy's from out of town. What's he about? So yeah, that scene was so enjoyable to do. That was the second day. The first day was our intimate scene. That was very interesting to have that as the first day.
I feel like so often that ends up being the first scene that people have to do together on set.
I mean, I listen, I've never done one of those scenes before. So for me, it was a whole new experience. But yeah, day one down, we did that. And then that was day two.
And there's another scene that you get early on that also really tells us a huge amount about Gloria, when she walks outside and kind of sees what's going on outside of the bar with Tommy as well, and just the poise and kind of silence and stillness in that moment tells us everything. It's like, this isn't the first time she's seen something like this. She's very comfortable in this sort of space. She can hold her own. She's not even looking to him for any sort of protection or barrier. You know, she doesn't flinch. Was that kind of easy to kind of figure out that poise and stillness that you brought into that moment as well in a different way?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was saying earlier in terms of she's not fazed by these men. Like, she's very used to this kind of activity. I kind of always say this, and Gloria's about that life. She's not in the life, but she knows it. You know, these guys, she grew up, you know, around these kind of guys. This isn't anything new. So, you know, going outside, seeing Simon with his arm broken on the floor, she's not, like you said, she's not even going to flinch. It's just completely what she's used to. You know, it's not like she looks forward to that every day, but she just knows that world it doesn't faze her. And if, you know, I don't want to say she's attracted to it because that makes her sound a bit messed up, but she definitely, I mean, she's clearly has a bit of a type because Tommy's a bad boy and so is Vic. So, you know, there's something about that she's, you know, is a little bit attracted to.
Yeah. You know, and when they're inside the bar, there's that great moment where she's kind of pouring a drink for Tommy. She doesn't pause to ask him what he wants. And even when he rebuts with like, I'm not really a rum person, she's, you know, she's like, but you are tonight. Like, this is what you're drinking. And I thought that was great too, because it's like, she's the one who's setting the parameters and the rules very early on. You know, and so was that something as well that you really wanted to, once you saw those lines in the script that give that kind of, where did you work to find a lot of the nonverbal ways in which she's kind of quietly asserting that? Because she's not coming in and being like, I'm in charge, but she's also like, I'm not going to stand down and I'm an active participant.
Yeah, like I think when it comes to, you know, moments like that, because I don't know if you saw as well, I take a drink from the drink before he drinks it, and that's like quite a bold thing for somebody to do. She's very playful with it. Like she's such a strong, you know, person, but she does have her sort of, you know, cheeky side, as I like to say. So yeah, in that moment, yeah, it definitely wasn't a choice to sort of like assert my strength in the moment that, you know, that's my bar and this is how I do things here. It's just more like it's showing him, you know, a little bit like, yeah, you know, this is what you're going to do tonight and this is how we do things over here.
And given the, you know, the first couple of episodes, especially, you're primarily getting to play these really kind of juicy scenes with Joseph, with Shane in the show, you know, did that really help in terms of building the interpersonal dynamics in terms of character, but also just figuring out the intimacy of that creative collaboration with both of them as co-stars, given how intrinsic these relationships are already becoming on screen for your characters?
Oh, definitely. And I'm just so blessed and lucky that, you know, Joseph Sikora and Shane Harper, they've been doing this for a million years. You know, this was my first big role. So I was around these two guys who were just fantastic actors, so lovely to be around. You know, we had such fun in the scenes. We all got on really well from day one. And, you know, I think that our chemistry in both situations shows. I hope it shows. But even watching the first couple of episodes back and, you know, remembering when we filmed it, it was such a lovely dynamic. And, you know, obviously I get the two different scenarios because Vic and I are in this on-off situation. So that's kind of fun to play that, you know, the back and forth with those two. And then the newness of the Tommy and Gloria situation, that was a whole nother dynamic that was fun to play. So it was so much fun being with those guys in the scenes.
Yeah. And because you were just saying how this is the biggest role that you've gotten up to this point, did that change anything in terms of the way that you worked, in terms of character, in terms of things on set for you? Or was it really just taking the foundation of how you've always worked on roles and characters and projects and just everything being expanded a little bit more because of the amount of time that you're getting to spend with this character?
Yeah, I mean, exactly that, all of the above. You know, I didn't sort of change anything other than I think what I was lucky about with this role was, like I said, when I read it, I was like, this is me. I read the script and I literally remember saying like, this is my role. I don't know who else is auditioning for it, but this is my role. And I even said it to my agent at one point, because I just understood her immediately, and I just got her, and I got the character, and I worked so hard embodying, her and her mannerisms, and her backstory and everything that comes with working on a character, that I didn't change anything as such. I just had the freedom this time to be on set, for many more days than I ever have been before, and to really, really delve deeper with the character development. Before this, I think I'd been on set for about 10 days in total. So this was, it was great to have this experience on this show.
Yeah. And because you were just saying there about some of it also being about figuring out the character mannerisms as well, what were kind of like the key mannerisms within Gloria that you found early on in preparation?
I mean, she has such a confidence. Gloria is such a confident person. And again, it's that kind of thing. When you're around these kind of people, you have to have that air of confidence. And I remember when I was working with Sheila Gray, who's another amazing coach, she said that, because I've never worked in a bar before, and she said that one of her side jobs was, working in a bar for years. And she said it's like a stage. Working in a bar is like a stage. It's your platform, and everyone that comes in, it's like your audience, and you're literally performing for them. And I took that on board, and I kind of ran with it, because I thought that's a really great way of looking at it, because you have to have an air of confidence to sort of be behind this bar and have all these guys come in, and like I said, be around the kind of guys that they are.
And talking a little bit about some of her backstory as well, we started to get little inklings and little details that she's dropping, like when she tells Tommy about being married before and the loss of her husband, which you were saying before was such a crucial part in kind of finding her and building her as a character, yeah. But did that also create a tipping point in terms of how you saw that dynamic with Tommy of like, okay, she's chosen to reveal things about herself. She's now reached the point where she feels comfortable. She's kind of sussed him out, and she feels close enough to kind of start telling him things about herself a little bit more.
I mean, I don't necessarily think it was a choice to reveal more, because she doesn't volunteer the information. He sees the dog tags and asks her. Yeah. So of course, yeah, she could have withheld or lied. But I think there definitely is something about Tommy that she does feel comfortable around him. Oh, clearly, because what happens ends up happening. But so I don't know if it was a conscious choice that she was like, now I feel comfortable and I'm going to tell him X, Y, and Z. I think it was just in that moment, it just felt right to tell him the truth. And it is quite recent, between that and, we find out in the next episode some more about the loss that she's experienced. So
were they able to give you a lot of information? Because it sounds like a lot of her backstory is going to kind of gradually be revealed piece by piece, episode by episode throughout the season. But were the writers and the creative team able to give you a lot of that information, or how much detail was important for you to be able to get from them beyond those first couple of scripts?
Well, something that was made very clear was how close I was to my mother. And she's passed, 3 years prior. And her dad wasn't really in her life, so it really was her mother and her. So that was the huge loss that she suffered, because that was her world. And that's kind of also what is so integral in the Vic and Gloria relationship, because he knew the mom. So you have it's like that thing, when you're a child and your parents know all your friends. That's not the case as you get older. And it's the same sort of thing where you have sort of a partner who knows both your parents, or knows one of your parents, or whichever one you're closest to, or your family. It's a different kind of dynamic than a partner that doesn't ever meet your family, or doesn't really know that side of you, because it's a whole nother world that they're then exposed to, that you always have that bond. Mm-hmm. So that kind of is what Victor and Gloria do have, and especially because that was the most important person in her life, was her mom.
Yeah. And with that being such an integral relationship to her, did you look at her as being someone where a lot of her personality traits come very directly from who she watched her mother be growing up as well?
Oh, I'm sure, especially with, the Jamaican culture is so strong, and she became a chef. So it's definitely like in her DNA like that. And, any single mother knows how hard it is to, raise a child by themselves. And like I said, she's she's used to that kind of life. So you can obviously imagine what kind of upbringing she had. So yeah, for sure, the mother situation is something that would have sculpted how she ended up, for sure.
Yeah. And obviously working within television and developing a character within that space, there's always the idea that there's details that could be added later on. And sometimes they really line up with what you've built. And sometimes you might have concocted something and there's something that's a little bit contradictory to that piece of information that you decided for yourself early on with a character. And so how have you set about for Gloria, really kind of creating that roadmap, thinking about her backstory, you know, thinking about the relationship with her mom, with her family in a lot of depth, and also leaving that openness so that you can continue to discover things about her or continue to kind of pivot as the script writers give you more?
Wait, as have I left it open? Are you saying?
Yeah, and just kind of like how you said about making like really solid decisions for her as a character, but also leaving a little bit of like openness and fluidity to it at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like we don't write the character, so of course there has to be, you have to stay open to whatever information you're being given. But there comes a certain point where the character so well that if anything, they're sort of writing with you, and it's a collaboration, because we become so into the characters that it's like it becomes kind of you for the time that you're playing it. I'm sure everybody's different with the way they work with characters, but for me, for sure, I become completely immersed, and that's me for that time. I don't think I even broke accent when I was filming. It was like, I think on one of the last days, I can't remember who it was, came up to me and they were like, I had no idea you were British. I was like, well, good, I'm doing my job right then.
That's amazing. And because this was a character that was kind of very comfortable and very easy for you to connect to and figure out who she was early on, I was interested in what have been the challenging aspects of playing her or working on the show as you've kind of navigated through the first season of the show.
Gosh, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say there were any challenges as such. It was pure excitement to just delve right in. Like I said, I can't say enough. I just understood her. I just got the character so well that I just couldn't wait to execute each scene and to be in the scenes with Joseph and Shane. And it was just so much fun. And if anything, the challenge was not being on set enough. I don't know. It was just an awesome experience. And as I watch it back each week, it's surreal, because I obviously remember doing it and everything, but seeing it, in its final version and being in the scenes with Tommy, a character that I've watched for the last 6 years, it's just amazing to see play out.
That's amazing. And I love hearing how great of an experience it's been in coming into the Power franchise. And I'm glad that they realized that it was your role as well. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. Really appreciate you talking about this.
Mara. Thank you.